to this computer. Boker Tov, Chag Urim Sameach. We say Chag Urim Sameach, meaning happy festival of lights, because that's what Chanukah is. You don't usually just say Chag Sameach, you say Chag Urim Sameach. And let's learn together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Today we're going to talk a little bit about the blessings that set us up for Chanukah. We're going to start with the basic blessings, and I'm utilizing a song sheet that I'll put into the link when I upload this into YouTube as well. Hopefully we will learn a thing or two that you might not have known. So on candle lighting time, we start with two blessings, similar to when we say the prayer for sitting in the sukkah. We, although the second one is not really a commandment, but you start off with Baruch atah, etc., etc., V'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Chanukah, no surprise there. And then you follow with this sentence, Blessed are you, God, or Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam, sha'asa nisim lavotenu, to this God who performed miracles for our ancestors, Bayamim hahem, at that time, Bazman hazeh, actually, in those days, in this time. So it was in a particular set of days. It's, time stamp as well as date stamp. So what are those days? It would be the days when the Maccabees were fully active and at this time. So it's a little redundant, interestingly. I think some renditions say Lazman Hazeh instead of Bazman Hazeh. The Klein family, my family, has a melody that I've yet to see anywhere else that I learned and Sylvia learned from our father, where the melody, anyway, I'll if we have time, I'll put that on the recording. And then, of course, for the first Shabbat, for the first night of Hanukkah, we add a Shechianu, as we do with all sorts of firsts. Now, or actually, I think he was a cantor, Ben Aronin of Anshe Emet in Chicago, made a jingle version of this. Be blessed, eternal our God, be thou blessed, O ruler of creation, who sanctified us by divine command, and commanded that we light lamps of dedication. Be blessed, eternal our God. And I probably should spell that out. In fact, I think I'm going to use this as an opportunity to catch things that I want to change. So I am going to, because of that, circle and damage this song sheet. Okay, there we go. So, be blessed, eternal our God. Be thou blessed, O ruler of creation, for wonders wrought before our Father's eyes. And be thou blessed forevermore for Israel's salvation. I'm not sure why that also did not translate right. So, I'll figure that out. Anyway, those are the blessings at the very beginning. And then, so usually what one does is after reciting the bracha, that is the commandment, as with everything else, we immediately engage in the act. So the shamash is first lit, and then you chant the first verse, the Shel Chanukah, and then you can start lighting the candles. You put the candles in from right to left, and you light them from left to right. So that's sort of the way it is, and Irvin's image on his backdrop shows the candles being put in from right to left, and the lighting of it would be from left to right. So you light the shamash, and then that shamash is used to light the other candles. And the reason that we light the other candles with the shamash is because of what we see in this paragraph that is traditionally recited. As you can see, it's found in Sofrim 26. I'm not going to go to that hyperlink because I really want to focus on Maoz Tzur. But there it says, Hanerot alalu anu madlikin, these candles which we light for the miracles and for the wonders and for the salvations and for the wars which you made for our ancestors in those days at this time, and for the sake through your holy priests through your holy Kohanim. That's why we light these candles. Okay, and then v'chol shmonat yemei Chanukah, and for all the 8 days of Hanukkah, hanerot halalu kodeshem, and these candles are holy. Ve'ein lanu reshut lishtamesh bahen. You are not allowed, you are not permitted to use them. Ella lirotan bilvan. The only thing you're supposed to do with the candles is use them. This is why we have a shamish. Because if you don't have a shamish, then you are using the candles to see. So it's sort of a legal fiction, sort of like the Shabbos elevator. You need a way to say, okay, I'm gonna be able to see, or I'm gonna be able to go up this elevator, but it's not because of something that I'm doing. It's because this shamish or this timer on this elevator. It's the same kind of thing. Even though you're benefiting from things, you create a legal fiction that allows you to kind of circumvent the rules. So the shamish, when we light a shamish as well as our candles, the shamash, which is the helper candle, is really in our sort of circumvention, the tool for us to be able to see with. Just like having any other lights on in the room. All of it is the light that we're actually using, per se. Does that make sense? This is always tricky for people to understand. This is why we have an extra candle. Because we want to make sure that we're not using the candles for any purpose other than for recognizing the miracle. Ella lirotan bilvad. We're only looking at them. Kidei lehodot ulahalel l'shimcha gadol, in order to be thankful and to praise your great name for the miracles and for the wonders and for the salvation. For your salvation. So that's why we have that extra shamash. Any questions on that?
Yes, I have a question.
Please.
You know how we sing always the beginning of the blessing, and the latter part, the part that we don't. I actually don't know if I've ever recited it, unless my mom probably
Are you
always
talking about
had
honey?
it.
Are you referring to this?
The where it starts in blue, and all the 8 days of Hanukkah, these candles are holy, and that, yes, that part to the end.
You're not used to singing that.
Yes.
Right. I think that's because there's not as many melodies for it. But when I was a kid growing up, we had this song at my synagogue, which I've never been able to find who wrote it, but it went, Yabba bim bam bim bam bim bam bim bam bim bam bim bam bam Hanerot halalu anachnu madlikin, and it keeps going, etc. And then it went V'chol shmona yemei Chanukah V'chol shmona yemei Chanukah Hanerot halalu kodeshen. So there are melodies for it, but it's not as common and people don't know it. And I would love to find the sheet music for that. But anyway, that's neither.
So it's not really a home melody, you're saying? It was just at the temple?
I have no idea who did it. I've discovered over time that whoever put together the music program at Temple Ahavat Shalom in Granada Hills was masterful. I mean, they really wanted to teach through music, and I think my life was forever transformed by it. So they did a great job. I think at one point I found the sheet music for it, but for one of the songs that we used to sing, and I just don't have the other. So the other, by the way, big thing from that world, which I don't want to go too far in that direction because it has nothing to do with Hanukkah, is that we did Joseph's amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, and I just found the I'm going to buy it online, a copy of that song booklet that was used by the junior choir. So
I'm keeping my mouth shut because I could go on about how cute you were at that.
All right, moving on. So that paragraph is traditionally read right afterward. And then we have Maoz Tzur. I want to look at the English first because that's what a lot of people are familiar with. Maoz, so Rock of Ages, let our song praise thy saving power. Thou amidst the raging foes wast our sheltering tower. Furious they assailed us, but thine arm availed us, and thy word broke their sword when our own strength failed us. Now, I really want us to look at this because this is fascinating. What is this text saying about the Jewish reason for Hanukkah? Why did we celebrate Hanukkah? Because, and thy word broke their sword when our own strength failed us. Notice the capitals. Thy word. This is being addressed to God. And we are praising God's saving power. It doesn't sound like a big deal, but it's actually a huge deal. Because what it's saying is all the credit goes to God. And when all the credit goes to God, it doesn't go to the Maccabees. Maccabees are human. God is God. You'll notice in the third stanza, I have seen it written as children of the Maccabees. But here, let's just look at what it says. Kindling new the holy lamps, priest approved in suffering, purified the nation's shrine, brought to God their offering, and his court surrounding, here in joy abounding, happy throngs singing songs with a mighty sounding. I'm not repeating just because there's no point in repeating. And then this is the most, indicative of what I'm talking about. Children of the martyred race. I think it's supposed to be martyred, but I don't know. These things are oral tradition. Whether free or fettered. Who are the children of the martyred race? That would be us, because we are the descendants of martyrs. Whether free or fettered, whether we are free or we are enslaved, wake the echoes of the songs. The echoes of the songs of our experience of redemption, where ye may be scattered. We're still living in diaspora. So this is written, as you can, if you had to put a timestamp on this, it's before the creation of the state of Israel. Yours the message cheering that the time is nearing, which will see all men free, tyrants disappearing. So what is this all about? It's about a messianic hope written by people who are very much not messianic yet. And it's an English translation of a song that we have not yet looked at. But notice the information here. It says English, Marcus Jastrow. Does that name ring a bell? Jastrow is the author of the most important, quintessential dictionary of Mishnaic Hebrew. He was a professor, I think, at HUC. So you can, if you get this, I did drop it in the chat, this song sheet. You can click on Marcus Jastrow, as you can see, it's hyperlinked, and you can learn who he was. But it's based on a German version by Leopold Stein. So this is post-emancipation Europe, right? There's a lot of free nations now, post-1848. Leopold Stein probably wrote it when he was a little older, but I don't know for sure. And it reflects this yearning for freedom. And that's where we were in those days. Okay, Kitty. All right. Any comments on this?
I have a comment. The verses, I think we typically only sing the first verse.
Yes, in English we do because we're lazy.
I think,
I don't think there's any reason other than that we're lazy.
Maybe we don't know it.
That's because we're lazy. I'm not a big fan of our reductionist approach to this stuff, but it's where we are as a society. We just don't have the patience to learn and to grow. And it's a tragedy. It's a human tragedy. You want to know what that's really like? Let's go to the next part, which is really what I wanted to talk about most, which is the actual Hebrew text. So, oh, look, and there's an alternative translation. I can't remember who wrote that. But anyway, it is interesting to look at these things. It's actually a little better. Look at the last verse. To the Holy Land we came, but worship not our God alone. The foe arrived to kill and maim, and drove us forth to lands unknown. Bitter was each dark and dear, as we almost perished in our fear. But after all, we heard the call, and we returned to our land so dear. Okay, so that's interesting. That's clearly... I'm just making notes here. I don't need to have the ampersands. I could actually make these words bigger. This was written at a time when, after the creation state. Now let's look at the actual text. If back here where I was talking about Maoz, where I wrote words by Mordechai. Okay, Rocky just did a joke. My son did a joke on Facebook about the author of this book, saying that it was for Rav Mar Dechachi or something like that. Marid Chaya or something. I don't know. He made a funny joke, and that's because the first letter of each stanza spells out, as I was talking about with Piyut the other day at Temple Bethel, the name Mordechai. And then you see the comment Hazak. So just like with Lecha Dodi, we have famous liturgical poems where the name of the person is embedded in the song, in the poem. So too, this one has Mordechai embedded in. Let me just erase it. But I highlighted it so it was obvious. So that people using this song sheet can see it. By the way, with the suggestion from Sylvia, I'm actually going to make this into a much larger font version for limited usage. I'll make this 6-page song sheet into a 12-page song sheet so that everyone can see it in bigger font. Okay, I'll make the pulpit edition. Okay. So Mordechai. So what is the content here? And just to cut to the chase, I have added in each of these stanzas a focal point for you to see what they're talking about. And when I mentioned this on the listserv, I wrote down that Kitty, why are you doing that? This has many parallels with Chad Gadya on Passover. And that's because it has a similar sense of the generations, the existence over time of the Jewish people and their experiences along the way. So here we go. The first verse, the first stanza, is really an introduction, and that's the one that everyone knows. Maoz, Tzur Yeshuati, Lechanai, Leshabeach, Tikon Beit Tefilati, Vishan Toda Nizabeach. Notice the rhyme. Leshabeach, Nizabeach. Le'tachin Matbeach, Mitzar Hamna Beach. So there's 4 of these, and then so it's A, then like a half A. Az Egmor, Bashir Mizmor, Chanukah Mizbeach, B, back to A. Everybody understand the rhyme pattern here? It's just very interesting. And what does it mean? This is, I think, my translation from a long time ago. stronghold of rock, right? Oz is strength, so strong one of rock, or it's a place of rock. My salvation, to you it is pleasant to praise. You will establish a house, tikon beit tefilati, of my prayer. Visham todah nezabeach, and there we will offer our todah offering. Really, it's a Thanksgiving offering. The todah was one of the offerings that you give on Chanukah, right? It says in the book of Maccabees that they retook the Temple Mount, so to speak, and there they were able to offer offerings again, and that's why it's called Chanukah. It was a renewal, a rededication of the temple. So when it says V'sham todah nezabeach, it's a double entendre. It's not just that we're going to give thanks. Todah means to thank, but we're going to give the todah offering. Le'et tachin matbeach. What did I say here? You will have served up the barking enemy. I don't know why I said it that way, but at the time you will prepare the matbeach, which is an oven, right? Isn't a matbeach an oven? I don't know why. This must not be my translation. A mitbach is a kitchen, so matbeach might be the oven of the kitchen.
I think it's slaughter. I think it's from tibuach. I think it comes from while you prepare the slaughter or the offering.
But it's a matbeach, so it's a slaughter thing. So it is an
right
altar.
While you're preparing the offering.
I think it's the altar, because an altar is where you did the offering.
I'm not certain. Yeah.
I'm gonna have to look at this.
Okay. But I think whether you're preparing the offering or the altar, I think the idea is much the same, that you're preparing the ritual.
Right.
Or preparing for the ritual.
At the time that you will prepare the slaughter offering, mitzar hamnabeach, from the, I don't know how to translate hamnabeach.
I think that's why you came with the barking, or somebody came up, because linvoach is like to bark. Kelev noveach.
From the enemy who is barking.
Yeah, maybe, but I'm not sure if that's what it meant.
I think.
But I see why it was used.
Right. Oz, so I don't know if I did this. Oz Egbor, then I will finish with song of Mizmor, a praise song, Chanukah HaMizbeach, the rededication of the temple. So, in other words, the introduction to this is the endurance of the temple itself. And so that's why the Maoz Tzur version is so different, because before the state of Israel was even created, Jews were not actively, there was certainly the liturgy of Sheyibanem Beit HaMikdash, that the temple will be rebuilt, but European Jews like Leopold Stein, and by extension Marcus Jastrow and Gustav Gattel, they were not interested in the rebirth of the temple itself. They just weren't. So the holiday was not about the rededication of the temple. It was about the rebuilding of the Jewish civilization. It was about, let's create a Jewish homeland, but not ever about the religious components. That's what I wanted to relay. Okay? And then we go into the verses. I'm going to do this quickly because we just don't have time. So first, so that's the introduction. And then the first verse is going back in time to the very first example of, they tried to kill us, we won, let's eat, as people will joke about the Jewish, if you want to understand the lachrymose history of Jewish civilization, well, you understand that, a lot of lachrymose, it's a very tear-filled history. History piece number 1 was Egypt. Ra'od Sava Nafshi, sadness, my soul was sated, my strength finished off with grief. My life they embittered with hardship, right? Because the word, where is it? Well, Chayai, my life they embittered with hardship, Bekoshi, Beshibud Malchut Eglah, with the servitude of the kingdom of the calf. Remember, Egyptians celebrated a cow, a sacred cow. Uviado Hagdolam, with your great hand, with his great hand. It's actually not your, it's not in the first person, the way, or second person, whatever the translation is. This is now reflecting on God. Uviado Hagdolah, and with his great hand, Hotzi et Hasigula, he took out the cherished people. Am Segula. Chel Paro v'chol zaro yardu ke'evem b'mtzula. The soldiers of Pharaoh and all of his seed were drowned, or were sunk, were lowered with like stones in the depths. Okay? They tried to kill us, but we won. And so, right, because of God's mighty hand, we were set free. Dvir kodsho heviani v'gam sham lo shakati. So that's Egypt. Now, what's the next great catastrophic event in Jewish history? Babylonia. Dvir kodsho, his holy word, heviani, he brought me, v'gam sham lo shakatati. And also there I was not silent. Uva noges vehiglani, and the noges, which I don't really know that word, but I have it translated here as the oppressor. The oppressor came and exiled me, put me into galut, put me into the diaspora. Ki zarim avadati, because I was enslaved like a foreign one. Vadati, right? Oh, help me, Avital.
So I have two things. Zarim avadeti is strangers I worshipped or I worked. So I think that means I worshipped
Oh,
idols.
it's servitude. Yeah, because we were enslaved in Babylonia, correct.
And I think they're saying we worshipped idol, like we went astray. And I just want to
No,
say
I don't know about that, but okay, go on. Yeah.
that was my understanding. But I was also going to say that noges, it comes from bite. So you know how the other
Oh, like a
line,
snake.
more like a dog, like you take a bite of. So I think it goes with the barking.
Oh, interesting. Yes, it is, Pamela. Correct. Uva noges, so it's barking. It's bite.
Of biting.
Okay.
And so somebody who was biting came and exiled us.
And came the biting ones.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it goes like that. But I think it's matbeach was the word we were talking about earlier. Matbeach. Mazbeach is altar, but matbeach, the question is if that's altar or if that's preparing the
I think
sacrifice.
it's one and the same. I think a matbeach and a mizbeach are one and the same. Both of them are temple functions to slaughter animals. One has the designation of being sort of a sacred space, but mitbach is a kitchen.
Yes.
And that's because you're heating up dead flesh. So it's all there. And I say it that way because, you know me. But anyway, kizarim avadati, because for strangers I worked, I think is probably not bad, because remember, we were exiled and put into slavery in Babylonia. And the fact that it's the biting one, I want to read up about this. I have a feeling there's a Babylonia connection to that idea of God, of Nebuchadnezzar being like like a dog that bites. So it's resonating something in my brain. Ve'yein ra'al masachti. I poured wine that was ra'al, which is another word,
Poison.
poison wine. I almost passed. I almost died because it was an exile here. Kates Bavel, the end of Babylonia, and Zerubbabel. So Zerubbabel was the last, I think, of the. Anyway, he's from that time period. So, and then Laket Shivim Noshati, and after 70 years, I was saved. Right? Because there was a 70-year exile. That's why later on, the Bar Kokhba rebellion in 135, 140 is 70 years after the temple was destroyed. There's this idea of the millenarian movement. Is that how you say it? Like at the 1,000 years after Jesus died, there was this sort of messianic Christian belief in a second coming because it was 1,000 years. It was like, oh, it's 1,000, it must be. So too, because there was a 70-year cycle too. After Babylonia exiled us, 70 years later, we were out with the help of King Cyrus of Persia. So 70 years became significant. And after the temple was destroyed in 70 CE, coincidentally 70, 70 years after that was about 140, which is when Bar Kokhba was believed to be a messianic figure who was going to finally overcome the exile of the Jewish people. So that's how the Bar Kokhba rebellion, it was built on this mystical idea that, because it's 70 years of exile, it's time for us to be freed. So there's something about 70 in Jewish tradition, 70 years, that is being emphasized in this. And the fact that they point out that it was Shivim, 70 years, is telling. Okay, we're over time, but I think we should just finish because we just don't have time otherwise. And if people don't have time for this now, you'll be able to listen to the recording. Okay, and anyone who needs to go is welcome to go. Okay, then after the Babylonians, who comes? It's the Persians, right? And who's the bad guy in the Persian story? Eventually, it's not immediate. It's, Haman.
Haman, yeah.
Okay. Karot Komat Berosh Bikesh Agagi Ben Hamdata. So the Agagite, son of Hamdata, also known as, remember, he is Tzorer HaYudim, he's the enemy of the Jews, right? Haman comes, and he cuts, he seeks out the karot, like karet, like the cutting off of Korat Harosh, the storied cypress tree. Storied meaning elevated. Koma is, I guess, is floors. Karot, the cutting down of the stacked barosh, which I guess is a cypress.
Yes.
Which is interesting because so somehow that is understood to be Mordechai. So Mordechai, the Agagite tried to sought out to kill Mordechai, right? Venita lo lepach u'mokesh. And it was for him a pach and a mokesh. A mokesh is like an obstacle. A snare and an obstacle. V'gavato nishbata. And his ga'ava, his pride, was ceased. Meaning Haman was, Haman with his pride, remember he wanted to be ruler. It wasn't just that he wanted to kill Mordecai, it's that he wanted all the power. That is what was ceased, right? Ceased, like Shabbat. Rosh Yamini Niseta, the head of the Yemini, Binyamin, right, of Benjamin, the head of Benjamin Niseta you carried, the Oyev Shemo Machita, and the name of the and his name's enemy you erased, right? You wiped out. Yamach shemo, is a phrase we use to say, extinguish or get rid of Amalek, right? This is about Amalek, right? Because Haman is Amalek. Rov banav v'kinyanav al ha'etz talita. The majority of his, or the many of his sons and his property, you hanged on the tree or on the gallows. Any questions about that? There's so many layers of interpretation that are embedded in this. It's actually brilliant poetry, as is not surprising.
I just think it's interesting how they point out that Mordecai was a Benjaminite, because there's so much heaviness with that tribe.
Yes. From this week's Parsha.
Yeah, and then with the Gibeonite, what am I trying to say? I've been looking at Ta'anit, and the Tu B'Av is also the day when suddenly people were now allowed to marry into the Benjamite tribe, because they were so horrendous that the whole story with the Gibeonite woman, the concubine, they didn't defend her. There's so much with that tribe, and I'm just now sort of exploring it, and I just find it really fascinating.
That's great. No, that's a very good point. I need to work on this translation, I think, a little bit, but I think you're absolutely right with what you're saying. It's fascinating, and you're right. It's not a coincidence that they're talking about Mordecai the Benjaminite. Remember, this is, according to the timeline of the Book of Esther, a few years into the exile, it's a little confusing. In some places, it sounds like Mordecai was actually in Babylonia, under the Babylonian exile. He seems to have a very long life, but in other places, he's just solidly within the Persian Empire, because this is later Persian Empire. This is not the liberation that King Cyrus gave us, to the right to go back to, because Cyrus was seen as a great one, as an ally. He allowed us to re-enter Jerusalem and reestablish the temple. So he's sort of one of the heroes in the story of Babylonia. But here it's much later, and Mordecai is the good guy, and Haman is clearly the bad guy. Okay, so we got two more verses. I'm going to try to move quickly, and like I said, if anyone has to go, they can. Yevanim nikbetzu alai. So the Greeks were gathered together upon me. Azai bimei chashmanim. And then it was in the days of the Hasmoneans. So Yevanim nikbetzu alai means the Greeks were gathering up, or were assembling, were coming together against me. That means the spread of Hellenism, right? Because it starts in Greece, but then the Greek Empire spreads out far and wide under Alexander the Great. And he goes to places like Egypt and to places like Syria. And the next thing you know, the entire world, or what they used to call the whole world, even though we now know historically it wasn't the whole world, becomes Hellenized, and Greek influences everywhere. So the Greeks were gathering upon me, meaning everywhere I went was the Greek influence, and now Zeus and Hera. What's the wife of Zeus? Is it Hera? I think it's Hera is the Greek version of the god, the goddess who's married to King Zeus. All of them are assembling all over the place, and they're about to pounce on us in Jerusalem. And they do pounce on us in Jerusalem. So they gather against me in the days of the Hasmoneans. The Hasmoneans is the name of the empire that is known as, they're basically the leadership of the Maccabees are. Think of the Hasmoneans as the whole era of leadership, but that the Maccabees were like the the red berets of that world. They were the military, that guerrilla warfare that was there in those days. So ufartzu chomot migdalai, and they breached the walls of my towers, the tim'u kol hashmanim, and they impurified all the oils. So this is actually the story of Chanukah as it appears in the Talmud, right? They basically give it exactly what we read in Shabbat, Tractate Shabbat, uminotar kankanim, and from among the jugs or the containers, nasa nes la shoshanim, there was made a miracle for the roses. Why are they the roses? I don't know. There's probably a deeper meaning than just, how sweet we are as the Jewish people.
Is it the cups that held the oil is shaped
like good. Are they called Shoshanim in the Talmud? I don't think they are.
I don't know.
But
in Psalms, they talk about the Shoshanim.
Yeah. But I don't know that in the structure of the menorah. I think you've got a point. A miracle was made for the Shoshanim. I need to look into that.
I think Sylvia is right.
I think you got it. Boom. That was great. Well, we're going to find out. I'm going to look that up. B'nai Vina Yemei Shmona, the children of understanding, Yemei Shmona, for 8 days, Kavu Shir Ur Na'anim, Ur Nanim. They set in motion on the 25th of Kislev song and celebration. So this really, it's weird that Maoz Tzur is about everything but this. This seems to be the Chanukah story in one paragraph. This, how we have like the 30-minute Haggadah for Passover? This is the 30-second song sheet for Chanukah. Right there. And then the last verse. So up to this point, everything is about all the experiences of exile. Going back to the very first verse, we are talking about the greatness of God and a hope in the future tense. Tikon beit tefilati, you will prepare my house of prayer, and there I will offer up a sacrifice. And then all the calamities of the Jewish people. And then finally, the last verse that has built into it another little acronym of Chet Zayin Kuf, Chazak, which means strong. So Mordechai, the strong one, is the guy's name. Chasov Zroa Kodshecha, bear your holy arm, the Karev et Ketz Hayeshua, and draw near the end of salvation. In other words, bring about that final time. And then it's a little violent. Nekom nikmat avadecha, avenge the avenging of your servants. Me'uma harisha'a, from the evil nation. Like Binyane Ha'uma in Jerusalem is the building of the nations. This is a word for nation. From the evil nation. So avenge the blood of your servants from your... So it's sort of a summary statement, I think, of all of the violence against us. Ki archa hasha'a, because the time has been long. We've been longing, right? The word longing is this idea of something that, I guess, it suggests that a lot of time is going by. Ki archa hasha'a, the ein kates limei hara'a. And there is no end to the days of evil, to the evil days. Deche admon betzel tzalmon. reject the Admon, the Edomite. So this is now going to be a reference to Christianity. Because Edom is Esau. Esau and Edom in Jewish parlance, in rabbinical parlance, is Christianity. Deche Admo, delay or reject the red ones, meaning the Edomites, meaning reject the Christians, but sailed Salmon in the shadow of darkness. Hakem lanu roim shiva, establish for us the 7 shepherds. And as you can see here, who are the 7 shepherds? David, Adam, Seth, Methuselah, Abraham, Jacob, and Moses. These are the shepherds of the Jewish people. Now, I want to tell you, my son, who's kind of a progressive, read this and said, I'm going to change the word. So you know how we repeat the last sentence? We say, Deche Admon B'tzel Tzalmon Hakem Lanu Roim Shiva. Deche Admon B'tzel Tzalmon Hakem Lanu Roim Shiva. So he decided, because he's a wise guy, he says instead of Admon, he says Deche Katmon the second time, as in the orange one. And that's his way of saying we got to end, a particular president in this time. So I don't want to go deep into it.
I thought that Asaph was Rome, not Christianity.
It's all the same, because Rome becomes the Roman Empire, the Byzantine Empire, and that's Christianity. Remember Constantine.
Okay.
Well, thank you. That was fun.
Yeah, I should probably translate this, reject the Edomites. Maybe I'll do that. Oops, you're welcome. I'm glad oops. What's going on here?
Okay.
Okay. All right, everybody. Thank you.
Bye-bye.